One of the options we're sure to need at some stage is to be able to rename an image, a couple of images, or maybe a whole batch of images. And to demonstrate this, I've opened up my finished image catalogue. Remember that once we start to use the Lightroom's catalogue system, all renaming of our images must be done from within Lightroom. Now the good news is that this is both easy and as comprehensive as we're ever likely to want. Now here I'm going to keep things simple because there really are so many naming conventions that we can almost argue that there's too many. But this software is designed for professionals and amateurs alike, and of course it must be able to meet everyone's needs, and on this score I think it's certainly going to do that and some. Here I have an image that I'd like to rename. You can see it's an odd file name here, but you'll also notice that the file name has suddenly appeared around the edge of the image. We're going to look at how we can apply different options to our images in the next video. But it's going to be helpful, I think, in this section just to be able to see the name and see it change as we go through the techniques. If we want to change just the one odd image, probably best to go to the metadata, and there you can see the file name, the current file name we have, and if I click, the whole thing is automatically selected. All I can then do is type in the name I want and try to get it right. I don't even need to worry about the file extension because when I hit the enter key, Lightroom will change the name and apply the appropriate file extension depending of course on what the image currently is. It's not unusual sometimes to have maybe a small batch of images to rename, and here we have 3 flowers. What I'm going to do is to highlight the first of those, go to my metadata and click, and it highlights the original file name. Here I can type the word flower, but instead of hitting the enter key, I hit the control key and the right arrow key. You can see the file name has been applied, but then the cursor jumps to the next image in the sequence and automatically highlights the file name for me. Well, it hasn't on this occasion, so I'll do it. But if I put flower in there too and do the same thing again, and then do the same thing over here, you can also see exactly what the naming is actually doing, because even though I didn't put in number 2 and number 3, Lightroom has picked up that we can't have a load of files all of the same name, so it adds the number afterwards. Pretty useful. But there are going to be other times, of course, when we've got a large batch of images to rename. I've picked a small folder here, my July folder with 17 images, but of course what we're about to do can be done for 17 or 7017. All we need to do to make a start is to hit Ctrl-A to select all of the images in the batch. We then need to go to the library option at the top of the screen, and we need to choose Rename Photos. Now we do have a shortcut for this, F2. Now that shortcut is a pretty universal shortcut because if we use that in almost any software package, it will open up a panel to enable us to rename a document, a picture, a movie. So it's not an uncommon keystroke and one that's going to be quite useful in Lightroom. Lightroom offers us so many options here, I think we'll keep this pretty simple. What I'm going to choose here is Custom Name and Sequence from the drop-down box. When I do so, you can see what happens. It opens up a field to enable me to give my images a name, and it also gives a start number. Now I find this meets all of my needs all of the time, almost never use any other option. But of course, that's just me. What should we put in there? Well, that's going to be a personal choice. I think the only thing with renaming files is you need a degree of consistency. Of course, we could be renaming these for a specific project, but let's keep things simple again and say, well, these are Beckham digital images underscore, and they're my finished images, and I'm going to rename them that with a start number of 1, and there we get to see exactly how it's going to look. If we don't like something and we want to take the underscore away, it will accept spaces. I think it'll even accept a dash as well. So if you wanted something like that, we could put that in. We can put spaces in. The choice again is yours. But you can see before we commit it what it's going to do. So it's going to rename this batch of images, and it could be a much greater batch of course, and it's going to name them with that convention. Click OK, and it's done in an instant. So let's say I want to rename the next folder of images. Now I've got 1 to 17 already done. I'm going to move to my June folder. I'm going to hit Ctrl A to select all of those, and this time I'll hit the F2 key. See how convenient things are. And also it's remembering what I did last time. So all I've got to do here is to say, well, I did 17 last time, start with 18 and click OK. And instantly I've got a second batch of images all named to follow on from those in the July folder. Moving back to my July folder, I've hit Ctrl A once again to select all, and now we'll hit F2 to bring up the custom rename. What I'm going to do here is to go to this option and go to Edit, because this is where we can create a preset. Now I can remove that convention there by just hitting the back button, the backspace, and I could type something in there. So I could say BD as before, I could use an underscore, I could then decide perhaps to put a date in there, and I've got all of these options to show the date. Now once I select one, let's say date, month, day, year, we'll choose any one for the moment and we'll just insert that. Then we may want a sequence number, and you can see we've got quite a number of options here. Rarely do I need to go over 3 figures, so I'll select that one and insert it. Up the top here we get to see just how this is all going to look, but it's looking a little bit jumbled, isn't it? And of course when we're looking at this date, 2008, it's not picking up the current date, which is 2014. On this occasion it's picking up the date this image was captured, which was correct, March 2008. But we don't have much of a gap between the date and the number of the image, so what we can do there is to put our cursor in there, and we can use our shift underscore to change the way the label is going to look. When I'm happy with that, I can click up here and choose Save Current Settings as a new preset. So I could call this BD date number, and that tells me exactly what it's going to do. Let's click Create and Done and OK. So there we have a batch of images. We want to rename them. We've hit Ctrl A, we've hit F2, and if it wasn't already showing in the file name here, it would show as a custom name. So in this instance, all I've got to do is hit OK. Now off camera, I've just turned off the name appearing at the top of the frame, because just want to remind you that when we mouse over an image, of course, we do get all the information pops up. We get the file name, we get the date we just applied, we even get today's date and the time, and even the pixel value of 5616 by 3744. So pretty easy to change the file name of any file we choose, and of course we know that if we just select one and hit F2, well, similarly we can apply any presets to just one image, as many images as we select, or a whole folder of images.